All right, hello everyone. We've got just a couple of minutes before we get started, so I'm just making sure the technology's working. But if you're here, stick with us. We'll start in just a minute. So we have a little less than a minute left, so give people a chance to join us. All right. I show 1 o'clock my time, so that is Central Standard Time. If you don't know who I am Dr. Kristy Mulkey, and I'm the workshop coordinator for 240 Tutoring. And I am live with you today to give you some test-specific help. So we've been doing live videos with general topics that apply to lots of tests, but you've asked for test-specific help, so that's what I'm here to do. So every Tuesday at this time, I will be live in this Facebook group doing some practice questions and going over some of the tested material for the test that you're taking. So today we're going to be looking at topic 2 of the elementary math subtest. And so last week we looked at topic 1, and today we're going to look at topic 2. So if you're taking that elementary test, stick with us. We're going to work through some math together. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can follow along. If you have a question at any point, drop it right in the comments. I'll be checking those as we go. If you are taking another test, leave that in the comments so we know what we can bring to you in the future to help. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that it's easy for you to follow along. Give me just a second to do that. All right, so hopefully you're seeing my PowerPoint and you can follow along with us. So again, topic 2 of the math subtest. And the structure of this video is going to be looking at your standards, competencies, how it's laid out, the expectations for you on this test. And then we're going to walk through some questions together so I can kind of teach you some strategy and teach you some skills. I'm also going to provide explanation of why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong. Now, these questions are part of the free public questions that are provided by ETS, and they have explanations in there, but sometimes those explanations are super complicated. So we're going to go through those in a real simplistic way so that you can follow along. Now, again, if you missed last week's video on topic 1, I highly suggest you go check that out right here in our Facebook group. But today we're looking at 2, which is algebraic thinking. So I want you to look a little bit closely at these standards. And that says you know how to evaluate and manipulate algebraic expressions, equations, and formulas. Okay, my pen's a little bit hesitant. So that's the big idea of what you need to do. And then down here, it breaks it down into even smaller, more easy to understand statements. So it's important that you read these and know what's going to be expected of you. Part B understands the meanings of the solutions to linear equations and inequalities. And Part C knows how to recognize and represent patterns in numbers, shapes, and all of those things. So we're going to look at the practice questions associated with this topic. All right, let's get into that first question. All right, this is probably the hardest question we're going to do today, so stick with me. This is on patterns in algebraic equations. So it says, which of the following equations gives the rule for the table shown? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Really, you should know something about slope and rate of change for these paired numbers to solve this. And that, if you asked a mathematician or if you read the explanation in the ETS manual, that's what they talk about. But what I want to say is if you're sitting there going, I don't know anything about slope, I'm going to break this down and show you that you actually can solve that with just some basic math skills, all right? So what we're gonna do here is we're simply gonna take the numbers from this table and we're going to plug them in to this equation until we find the one that works, okay? So I'm gonna start with A, and it says Y. So let's just take this first row right here. Y is negative 20 equals negative 8x plus 4. So if I plug in that x, I have negative 20 equals negative 8 times, and if we're looking at that same row, 4 plus 4. And I can go a little bit further. Negative 20 equals negative 8 times 4. A negative times a positive will give you a negative number. So we're looking at negative 32 plus 4. Now, if we're adding, even if you don't remember, well, I don't know what operation this would, or what sign this would be. Would it be negative or positive when I add a negative and a positive numbers together? Think of a number line, guys. If 0's right here and negative 32 is way down here, and we add a positive 4 to it, it's a positive 4, so it's going to move this direction. It's going to move 4 spaces closer to 0, which would actually put us at negative 28. So you can keep that negative sign and you'd actually subtract. So 32 minus 4 would be 28. But if you can't remember that math, just work with a number line. Work with a number line, okay? So negative 20 does not equal negative 28. So this cannot be the answer. Now we can continue this process for each one, okay? So we can go to B and we can do negative 20 and do the same thing equals negative 7 times, and the x is still 4, plus 4. Now, if you've got this down, you know we're going to be looking at negative, hope you know, 28 plus 4, which is going to put us at 28 minus 4, 24. So this would be negative 24, which does not equal negative 20. And we just keep going. And when we plug in for C, we're going to get negative 20 equals, got small space over here, negative 6 times our x is still 4 for that top row, plus 4. Some of you are already doing this pretty quickly, and you know 6 times 4 is 24. It's going to be a negative 24, plus 4 would actually be a negative 20. All right, and so negative 20 equals negative 20. You could test out 5 to make sure it works. Negative 5 times 4 would be negative 20, plus 4 would be negative 16. So that does not work. And you can even test it with each set of numbers. So you don't actually have to know anything about slope. So if you've done this question in the practice materials that are provided by ETS, so all these questions come from those practice materials provided by ETS, and then you jump to the explanation and you read the explanation, you were like, slope, what? Oh my goodness. You don't even have to do that. You can simply plug in the numbers you've been given until you find the one that works. Now you have a calculator, so you can use a calculator to make that go a little bit faster. And so feel free to make that math go a little bit faster. All right. So you could also mentally reason through this. And let me tell you what I did when I saw this, just to make it go faster. I thought, okay, for each of these answer choices, I've got to multiply that negative number times the x. And I've got to get within 4 of these numbers. So I quickly did, well, 4 times 8 would be 32. Negative 32 is not within 4 of negative 20. And then I did the same thing. And so I actually just did it all in my head mentally. But if that's overwhelming for you, you can write this out. You can absolutely use the principles of slope to figure this out and know how that equation works using rise over run and those kinds of things. But if that's confusing to you, just know you can just plug in the numbers. This is patterns in a table, and we're just figuring out how does that pattern exist, and that pattern can be expressed as y equals negative 6x plus 4. That's the pattern that exists between those numbers. So if that totally threw you off, just work through another one that's really similar. We're just plugging in numbers. So wanted to show you that. I thought that was pretty cool that we can make the math a little bit simpler, which I know a lot of you really appreciate. Okay, we're going to move on to number 6. All right, it says 5 is less than or equal to 7 minus p. Which of the following is equivalent to the inequality above? Now, again, if you read the explanation in the manual, in the preparation materials, it's quite technical. I've been teaching math for a long time, and even I read that and I had to read it twice. So I'm going to show you a much simpler explanation for why the right answer is right here. So we're just going to balance this equation. So if you remember from late junior high, high school algebra, you know how to balance an equation. So I'm going to start with this. We have 5 is less than or equal to, it's kind of like our equal sign in the middle, 7 minus p. Now, if I want to solve for p, which is what they've done over here, they've told us what p is in all these answer choices. I'm going to have to isolate p on one side by itself. So here's how my brain went through it. I said, okay, I'm going to do plus p. Oops, that's my mistake. That should be plus p to both sides. All right, so we keep it balanced. I have my negative p and my positive p right here that cancel each other out. So now I have p plus, because it's a positive p and a positive 5, less than or equal to 7. Now I've just got to deal with my 5. I'm going to try to get it on this side of the equation. So p is left by itself. So I'm going to do p plus 5 minus 5 to get them to cancel each other out. So if I minus 5 on this side, I have to minus 5 on this side. So now these two cancel each other out. And I'm left with p is less than or equal to 7 minus 5, which is 2. So this is actually much simpler than it appears. The correct answer here is A. P is less than or equal to 2. All right. Now this can be solved in a much more technical way, but this will get the job done. And you could work on balancing this equation a couple of different ways. What's funny is I had my daughter sit next to me, who's kind of a little math whiz, and I asked her to solve it, and she approached it totally different than me. So this is how my mind sees it, but you could write this a couple of different ways. When you move this p over, you could have said 5 plus p. Either way is fine. They mean the same thing. All right. So hopefully that helps you with this. Just think about balancing that equation, because basically what they did was they found what is p. So we're going to find what is p. Pretty simple once you get going. Okay. Let's look at number 9. It says Jack had 3 babysitting jobs this week. He worked the same number of hours, which we're calling H, on each job. He was paid at a rate of $12 for every hour at his first job, $4 for every half hour at his second job, and $5 for every 20 minutes at his third job. Which of the following expressions could be used to find the total amount in dollars that Jack earned? Now, I'm just going to draw a real quick, simple table to show this. And I'm going to give 3 columns here. And this is going to be the job number. So we have the first job, the second job, and the third job. This is going to be the hours worked. Okay? And we don't know this. So we don't know this for each one. We don't know how many hours he worked. Okay? We're going to leave it as H, because that's what they've done in all the solutions down there. Okay? Now, what we need to do is look at his pay. And we're going to convert these. The first one says $12 per hour. So per hour, because it's asking us how many dollars did he earn, all right? And we need to know per hour. So we're going to convert all the rest of these to hours. It said $4 for every half hour. Well, if that were for half hours, in 1 hour, if we change it to hour increments, we would have to do 4 times 2, which would be 8. So here he's getting paid $8 an hour. At his third job, it says he's getting paid $5 for every 20 minutes. Well, how many 20-minute groups are there in an hour? 20, 40, 60. So there's 3 20-minute segments. So in 1 hour, we would have to do 5 times 3, and he's getting paid here $15 per hour. So we took these that weren't in hour increments and we changed them to hour increments. So now if we want to know how much did he make, let's look at that formula. We would have to do 12 times the hours he worked for the first job. Then we'd have to do 8. I'm sorry, that should be an H. 8 times the hours he worked for the second job, and 15 times the hours he worked for the third job, and then add all that together. So now we just need to look for an expression that matches that. We have 12 times the hours he worked and 4 and 5. Well, those weren't hourly pay, so that won't work, because if you do 4 times the hours he worked, he was making $4 every half hour. So A is not correct. 12 times 8, H, 8 plus, let me start that all over again. 12 times H plus 8 times H plus 15 times H. That's what we have right here. And then down here, it's all correct till you get to this 20. So if you did not understand that 5 times 3 is 15, if you made a mathematical calculation error. And then over here, it was looking at that half hour and third hour, and that would actually make the time smaller. And so if we multiplied by a fraction. So our correct answer here is B. So while this looks complicated, it's really not. It's really not. A simple table will help you organize your information. All right. Let's look at this question. This is our last one. Now, I'll be honest with you. This one, for me, I had to stop and think about it. I'm like, wait a minute. How does this work? Because it's been a while since I've done this. It says, in this expression, 4x to the second power plus 7, what is the degree of 4x squared? So we're looking for the degree. All right, and we're looking at 4x squared. Now, if you don't remember this, take your best guess and move on, because no amount of staring at it is going to help you remember. No amount of staring at it is going to help you remember. So you either have to know or you don't. So I'm going to tell you, so maybe you'll remember. So the rule for finding the degree of a monomial, which this is, and don't get hung up on that term, all right? But to find degrees, it's the sum of the exponents of the variables. I'm going to say that one more time. To find the degree, my pen has had a mind of its own all day. It's going to be the sum of the exponents of all variables. All right, so those are our letters, if you're unsure what the variables are. So here we have a variable of x. We don't even have any more. Its exponent is 2. There's nothing to even add to 2. There's nothing to add here. There's no sums. We have one variable as one exponent. 2 plus nothing is still 2. So this one doesn't require any math work. It just is a test of what do you remember. Now, I'm going to give you another one that requires some math work so that if you did have to do this, you would understand. So let's say we had this expression, 4x to the second power y to the third z, or you could say squared and cubed, 4x cubed y, or 4x squared y cubed z. okay? All our variables are these letters. So I have X, Y, and Z. The exponents are 2, 3. All right. Now, what you have to know is if there is no exponent, the exponent is assumed as 1. It is 1, not even assumed. But you might have to write it in there so you don't forget it. If there's no exponent, it's 1. So you would add all these up. 2 plus 3 is 5 plus 1 is 6. So the degree for this expression would be 6. All right. Now it'd be tricky because you'd be tempted to add 2 and 3 and just get 5. But you got to add that 1 that's understood to be there, okay? So 2 plus 3 plus 1, 6. All right? So remember, degree, add exponents of variables. I'm going to say that one more time. Degree, add exponents of variables. If you think you're going to forget that, make your little flashcard so that you remember, so that you don't forget. So this is one of those you either know or you don't. Guys, you're going to come across questions like this that you're like, and you're going to sit and stare at it. Because this is a timed exam, please just take your best guess and move on. Please just take your best guess and move on. Either you're going to remember or you're not, okay? I had to sit there and think about it for a second, and it came to me within about 10 seconds. I'm like, okay, hold on. It's just back in that file that's far back in my brain, all right? And so if you can't remember within about 10 seconds, guess and move on. You can always flag it and come back to it, but most likely I would flag and come back to the ones that I know I can do that are just going to take a long time. And I don't want to spend too much of my time on one question, then flag this one. Because coming back to it, you're going to be like, yeah, I still don't know. I still don't know. So just take your best guess, don't fret about it, and move on. So let's review really quickly some general tips and suggestions. I said these last week, but I'm going to re-emphasize to you that it's important that you know the total number of questions and how many you need to get correct. That is a great way to pace yourself and figure out how many you can come back to and how many you just need to take your best guess and move on. Know the style of questions. Know your time limits. Know your time limits. Familiarize yourself with the setup. What does the screen look like? You can do practice questions right here at this website. I highly suggest you take a look. There is an on-screen calculator that you can practice with, and I'm going to show you that on the next slide. I'm going to say it every time I do one of these videos. It is important that you not only practice the math and practice the questions, practice the reading, whatever it may be, but you practice your pacing. Set yourself a time limit and see how fast you can move, okay? So that you don't get hung up and waste too much time on something. It'll also help you figure out what you do fast and what you do slowly. And so you know, oh, I can make up some time here, or this is going to slow me down. Maybe I need to come back to it. I think it's wonderful what ETS does. If you look on their website, you can actually request access to the on-screen calculator and practice it with it. Y'all, an on-screen calculator is much more tedious to use than one right in your hands. So when you want to practice with that on-screen calculator, and I highly recommend you do, go check out this website and you can see right there how to sign up and actually get some practice. All right. So if you're like, oh, I need more information, I need more help, I highly recommend you check out our study guides. You can go to 240tutoring.com/study guides and find those. We have a bunch of free resources right here at 240tutoring.com/resources where you can get a bunch of free things. We also have this Facebook group that you're in, and all those videos, this week's, next week's, the week before, are all right here in this Facebook group. We also have videos on our main Facebook page I highly recommend you check out. And we have a YouTube channel that has math videos, science videos. Go check that out. These videos will stay right here in this Facebook group, but we will also upload them to YouTube. So if you're more of a YouTube person, you can go check those out on YouTube. If you have any questions, I don't see any in the comments right now, but I do office hours on Wednesday. So every Tuesday at 1 Central Time, I will be here doing live videos. On Wednesdays, I'm in your group, this Facebook group right here, and I'm answering questions. And so I'll comment on posts. I will post some things that might be helpful. I'll answer any questions you ask. So even if you're watching this video later tonight or next week or whenever it may be, and you see something that you want to ask a question about, you put that in the comments. I promise you during office hours, I will see that and I will try to answer that for you. So next week, we'll keep moving through the math and then we'll address more subjects as the weeks move on. But I am Dr. Kristy Mulkey with 240 Tutoring. I hope you have found this helpful, and I will see you next week. Best of luck as you prepare for your exam.